crush your cravings and kill your sweet tooth with sugar, and kill your cravings with carbohydrates. A lot of people are having a lot of cravings doing carnivore, doing keto. They're not everybody. There's some people that can stay on carnivore. There's some people that can stay on keto just fine. But for those of you that have struggled, for those of you that have done those diets, or for those of you that are stalled out, I think it's time for you to try something new. And it's a very low fat. Get your fat grams. Start by getting your fat grams under 50 and try that out for a little while, and then maybe start to matriculate them down to around 40 and 30, and maybe stay in that range for a week, 2 weeks or so, and then bring the fat calories up. But consume a lot of carbohydrates. How much carbohydrate? Maybe about 2 grams per pound of body weight, or 2 grams per pound of lean body weight, or 2 grams per pound of desired body weight. Whatever number you want to try to select. It doesn't really matter that much. But if you haven't eaten carbohydrates in a while, start with something modest. If you haven't had much in the way of carbohydrates in a while, maybe start out with 200 grams of carbs a day and try that for 3-4 days. It's not like you need some big adjustment period, but you want to make sure you're digesting things cleanly. What type of carbohydrates? Well, let's stick with fruits and various forms of sugar. I know that people have a big problem with sugar, but even flat out table sugar, honey, maple syrup, these are all things that are allowed on this particular low-fat diet. You can also have a lot of fruit and fruit juice, and obviously vegetables are fair game with just about any type of diet, except for the carnivore diet, I guess. In addition to that, you're going to have very lean meats. Like, what are your sources of protein? Have very lean meats. And for the suggestions I have here, this has nothing to do with the sugar diet or the honey diet or sugar fasting or anything like that. Although you could do fruit and sugars by day, lean meat and starch by night if you wanted to. That could be a strategy that you could utilize. But you can also just sort of eat your lean proteins and your carbohydrates throughout the day whenever you'd like. Because what I'm trying to teach people, I myself am still following the sugar diet. I'm still following some of those aspects, as I've mentioned in previous videos. But what I'm sharing with you guys right here, right now, is a way for some of you to get rid of binging, for some of you to stifle your cravings. And if you have access to stuff that's a little bit more fun, it should be way easier for you to continue onward. The person that just walks for fun is going to walk a lot further than the person that's thinking, oh, I got to get my 10,000 steps in every day, right? So when your diet becomes more exciting, becomes more exhilarating, you look forward to the meals. We need something to look forward to. We know that. Elvis Presley said this. He said, you need something to look forward to, something to do, and someone to love. That's the way you make it through every single day. Those 3 components, someone to love or someone to love you, and or both, would be nice. Something to do, go on a walk, lift some weights, go to work, spend time with your family. Something to do, something to look forward to is a big one. It really is, because a lot of times the things we look forward to, they kind of end in disappointment because our expectations are high. And I've shared this before, but I try to live a very low to no expectation life, because you get out of life what you put into it. And your expectations must be managed in accordance to what you put in. And so if I'm not putting in the steps because I'm interested in it, then I'm not going to get the results I want. But if I'm forcing these steps because I'm trying to force some results, it's going to be a lot harder for me to get the results that I want, because it's going to be harder for me to stay consistent with it. I can still get the results. Results can be forced sometimes. But you guys see what I'm saying here with some of this? Maybe some of you don't. I'm trying to explain it the best I can. What a lot of people have noticed by following this diet, by eating more carbohydrate, eating low fat, and by allowing sugars. Again, you could have things like rice cakes. You could have a little bit of cereal here and there. You don't have to have sugar-free stuff anymore. You can have stuff that just has sugar in it. And when you start to have some things that have sugar in it, I'm not really talking about like having a bunch of snacks and having like Rice Krispie treats and like all that kind of stuff. I mentioned cereal because cereal can be very useful like before or after a workout. A little bit of cereal. And if you have a hard time controlling the amount of cereal, maybe no cereal for you. But even just throwing some sugar in your oatmeal, throwing some sugar into your rice cereal in the morning. These kind of things, throwing some sugar in your coffee, these kind of things can be like life-altering in a way. Or just even having a Coke. Remember Jay Cutler used to have a couple Cokes every day? Having a little bit of sugar can go a long way. And I know some of you are like, no, I can't do it. I can't have sugar. I'm not talking about you having copious amounts of sugar. I'm talking about you eating maybe 300 grams of carbohydrates in a day, maybe 400 grams, depending on your size, muscularity, and depending on your goals. Because you could even have more. I eat quite a bit of carbohydrate at this point. And about 25 or 50% of that could be from sugar or sugars. And all this stuff about sugar, keep in mind the fructose and the sucrose and all these different things, it's a little bit similar when it comes to honey maple syrup and table sugar. And even the sugar in some candies isn't too much different than these other simple sugars. Simple sugar is simple sugar. The complex carbohydrates are different. The stuff that you get from potatoes, the stuff you get from rice, and those types of things. Those are a little bit different. And those are still allowed in the diet too. That would be maybe about 50% of your diet. It really just depends. I wouldn't even try to figure out percentages. I'm just throwing out suggestions to you guys on kind of like what to do. But I think one of the keys to diet is to really shut down cravings. And the way that we shut down cravings is make sure we're hydrated. Make sure we're getting in enough liquid every day. Make sure you're getting your salt in, because salt is part of that balance. Your potassium is part of that balance as well. So you can get some of that from your fruit, from your vegetables, and even meat has some potassium in it. Making sure your cup is filled up. Making sure your nutrients are filled up. And when you have fruit and lean sources of meat, you are getting in the macronutrients that you need, and you're getting in a lot of the micronutrients that you need by just doing that. So those are the kinds of things that I like to make sure that are in my diet, and when they're in my diet, the cravings are just like less and less and less. I just don't care that much about eating a chocolate bar or having ice cream, or if my family does something, they get pizza or something like that. Sorry about the wind out here. Hopefully it's not too annoying, but I'll end up cutting this here in a second. And sometimes when my family does order pizza or something, I'll also eat a couple slices. As long as it's few and far between, like, we don't have a problem. You could be a normal person here and there. You could eat normal. Eat some of these, normal foods that aren't really normal foods. They're modern foods that we tend to eat way too much of. But yeah, make sure that you're consuming enough protein. And also what you're going to notice is a shift in your cravings. You're going to notice a big shift in your cravings. And the shift is going to be that when you're consuming a lot of carbohydrate, when you're consuming some sugar, you're going to crave fat. And you're going to crave a more normalized meal, which is amazing. You'd be sitting there craving like a steak and a potato. And you can have that. So fulfill that craving, and also fulfill that craving for the fat. Remember earlier, I said let's try to keep the fats maybe like 30 to 50. Well, here and there, every 5 days, every 8 days or so, bring the fats back up. It doesn't really matter how many days, by the way. It's just a suggestion. It could be every 3 days, okay? It doesn't matter. But bring the fats back up, or just have a fatty meal. And even if you have one fatty meal in the day, You have a steak that has 25 grams of fat in it. That doesn't mean that it automatically pushed you above and beyond your fat calories for the day, right? So the lean protein sources, 99% lean turkey, chicken breast, scallops, shrimp. I get frozen stuff. I get frozen shrimp, frozen scallops. I also get canned fish. Fattier fish would be mackerel. Good with some of the omega-3s. Let's see, salmon. Pink salmon is really nice. Wild Planet pink salmon, only 4 grams fat per serving, I think. Maybe there's only 4 or 5 grams of fat in the whole thing. But yeah, it's a good way to get some omega-3s in, good way to get some protein in. And then, of course, you got the certified Piedmontese steaks that are very, very lean. Their fillets have next to nothing in terms of fat in them. Their tri-tip, same thing. So that gives you a great option in terms of red meat. I wouldn't suggest 93.7 lean ground beef unless you were just doing it occasionally. Like you do that a couple times a week, then no harm, no foul. About 32 grams of fat per pound. So it's just something to keep in mind. It's not automatically pushing you above and beyond your fat threshold for the day, but it is a decent amount, right? So last thing here is the way that I'm doing it is mainly just sugars by day, lean meat, and a starch at night. And lean meat and starch for me just means usually a certified Piedmontese steak and some rice or a potato or sweet potato. And the next day I reload and do the whole thing over again. But it got rid of my cravings, and it got rid of my cravings forever. And I never thought I would be free from them. I never really thought that would happen. Keto dieting, carnivore dieting, all those things that made it very difficult. Every handful of days, I would just have these cravings. And I did a pretty good job of staying away from the cravings, but I was, having like Legendary products and Quest bars and different things just to keep myself away from that. And the easiest thing, in my opinion, the best way to get through it is to go right to it via sugar. Like you use the very thing you're trying to avoid, because why are you avoiding it? Why are you craving it so bad? It's because the body runs on sugar. The body really wants to run on sugar so bad that it's very difficult to stay in a ketogenic state. Very hard to stay in a ketogenic state. Body wants to come out of it all the time. Body wants to run on glucose all the time. In fact, it will just turn your amino acids into glucose whenever you are trying to not have a lot of carbohydrates, right? So the body will still find out a way to run off of those carbohydrates. Strength is never weakness. Weakness never strength. You want to crush your cravings. Do what I said. Start to load up on those carbohydrates. Keep the fats real low and utilize sugar as a weapon. Catch you guys later. Bye.